Today's video is about DeFi on Bitcoin. Bitcoin is, of course, the largest digital asset by far. However, historically, it has not had as developed an ecosystem as many other chains like Ethereum. And there's good reason for that. Bitcoin doesn't have smart contracts, and it's optimized for security and decentralization rather than for speed. However, that's starting to change. The Bitcoin ecosystem has been taking shape recently with ordinals as well as layer 2s that are enabling DeFi to be built on Bitcoin. This video is about one of those layer 2s known as STX. I'm going to talk about what STX is as well as STX tech. I'll talk about their ongoing Nakamoto upgrade and what that could mean for you as a user. And then I'll get into the STX ecosystem and how you can start using STX yourself. Welcome back to Dynamo DeFi. My name is Patrick. As a reminder, nothing in this video is financial advice. This is solely educational. Additionally, I want to share that this video is sponsored. Now let's get into it. Before we get into the meat of the video, I want to share that I also produced a long deep dive on STX, which goes into everything we'll talk about in this video in much more detail. So if you enjoy this video and you want to learn more, check this out on my Substack. You can see that this includes a lot more details about everything we'll talk about today, and I'll link that down in the description. All right, so let's talk a bit about Bitcoin DeFi and why it makes sense. And here's why. If we look at the overall DeFi ecosystem, so every application on every chain in DeFi, look at total deposits in those decentralized finance applications. Currently, if you don't include liquid staking, it's around $92 billion. And if you do include liquid staking, then it jumps to around $140 billion. So pretty substantial, right? I mean, this is an industry that barely existed 4 years ago. For context, it had less than $1 billion in deposits 4 years ago. Now it has $140 billion. I mean, that's incredible growth. Well, compare that to the total Bitcoin market cap, which is currently $1.23 trillion. So when you look at that, right, suddenly this $140 billion, which includes liquid staking, remember it was under $100 billion without liquid staking, suddenly it seems like, okay, there's actually a lot more room for this to grow. And just to put that in perspective, if you look at the fluctuation in the price of Bitcoin over the past month, then you can do the math, right? That's almost 10%, $1.23 trillion. The amount that Bitcoin has fluctuated in the past month is basically the entire total value locked in all of DeFi if you include liquid staking. If you don't include liquid staking, then Bitcoin has fluctuated by significantly more than the total value locked in all of DeFi. And the point of this isn't to rag on DeFi, right? This is a DeFi focused YouTube channel. The point of this is that there's a massive opportunity if some of that Bitcoin liquidity can be unlocked. It doesn't even have to be a majority of it, but if some portion of it can be unlocked, then that could drastically increase the amount of money in DeFi and quickly become one of the largest DeFi ecosystems. And just to give perspective on that, the largest DeFi ecosystem right now is Ethereum. Second largest is Tron. Third is BSC. Fourth is Solana. If we toggle in liquid staking, then we can see that Solana becomes the third largest. But even so, even if just 1% of Bitcoin entered DeFi, that would be the second largest DeFi ecosystem. If 10% of Bitcoin entered DeFi, that would be the largest DeFi ecosystem. I'll zoom in to make it easier to see. The total value locked in Ethereum, the largest DeFi ecosystem, when you include liquid staking, is $94 billion. And Bitcoin is over $1 trillion, so 10% of that is going to be larger. And the point of this is that there's a massive potential for an ecosystem that is able to capture some of that DeFi market, even if it's just 1%, to be one of the largest DeFi ecosystems. And we can see that applications on or farms and those sorts of things on Bitcoin themselves currently have around $1.2 billion. And then if we look specifically at Bitcoin sidechains, then we can see that there are about probably there's 9 sidechains with over $1 million right now. The largest is Merlin with $1.167 billion. And then STX is the second largest with $259 million. And the focus of today's video is on STX. And so you can see that these ones, some of them have already gained decent traction, but they have so much more room to grow if more Bitcoin enters DeFi. All right, so now that we've set the stage with why Bitcoin DeFi is a huge opportunity, what is Stacks, how does it fit into the conversation, and how does it matter? Basically, Stacks enables all of the things that we were just talking about. It's a Bitcoin layer 2. That means that ultimately the transactions on Stacks are settled onto Bitcoin, so it inherits some of Bitcoin's security and immutability. However, unlike Bitcoin, it has smart contract, which allows complex applications to be built. Another example of a Bitcoin layer 2 would be something like the Lightning Network. However, the Lightning Network is mostly used for instant Bitcoin transactions. It's used for payments. It's designed for payments. What Stacks does is it also functions as a layer 2, similar to Lightning Network, where Bitcoin can be loaded onto Stacks protocol. However, it has these smart contracts which enable you to build more complex financial applications rather than solely using it for payments. And that's not to say that Lightning Network isn't important. It's to say that Stacks serves a different purpose, right? Lightning Network is for payments. Stacks is for building applications. That's things like decentralized exchanges, like stablecoin protocols, things like lending markets. Basically, it allows you to create financial applications that actually use Bitcoin directly. And these sorts of applications have been on Ethereum for years. They've been on Solana for a while, but there haven't been that many applications that actually are on Bitcoin for the reasons we talked about before. And Stacks enables that. And like I showed you a second ago, they've actually already started to gain some traction. There's over $250 million currently in Stacks protocols, the largest of which is Stacking DAO, a liquid staking protocol for Stacks, although on Stacks, they don't call it staking, they call it appropriately stacking. So it's a liquid stacking protocol, but it also includes decentralized exchanges, CDP, that's a crypto-backed stablecoin, lending, yield protocols, and more. So it's a quickly developing and very diverse ecosystem. And some other details about Stacks that are important to know is that another important thing to know about Stacks is it uses the Clarity programming language for smart contracts. Most chains use either Solidity or Rust for smart contracts. However, Stacks uses Clarity, and some of the reasons highlighted as why Clarity are that it's predictable, secure, it doesn't require a compiler, and especially important for Stacks, with Clarity, you have read access to the Bitcoin chain. So that's the language that's used on Stacks, and I think that is potentially a positive if they can build out a developer community around Clarity, because it creates some stickiness and a moat for the ecosystem. However, it could also be a challenge in onboarding developers from some other ecosystems. Another important thing to know about Stacks is that they use the proof of transfer protocol. And what exactly is the proof of transfer protocol? Basically, the way that the proof of transfer protocol works is that miners spend BTC to try to win each Stacks blocks, and then the BTC is transferred to people who have locked up their Stacks. So you can stack your Stacks, which is the equivalent of staking on other chains, and you receive BTC from the miners in return. And then the miner that actually wins the block receives the STX rewards plus transaction fees. So you can see miner spends BTC, miner receives Stacks plus transaction fees, and then people who have locked up their Stacks receive BTC. And I think that's one of the things that stands out to me about this is that if you're locking up your Stacks, you are receiving real yield in the form of Bitcoin, right? Who doesn't want more Bitcoin if you're into crypto? And with this, you actually can lock up Stacks and receive more Bitcoin. But the reason that Stacks really stands out is that they have the upcoming Nakamoto upgrade. And this is already ongoing. It's being pushed to mainnet, so it should be fully out soon. And I think this is going to be a pretty big catalyst for the Stacks ecosystem. And truthfully, this brought Stacks onto my radar even before they reached out to me about doing a partnership. Because what the Nakamoto upgrade is going to do is a few things. First, it's going to enable faster block times. So right now, each Stacks block has to wait for the Bitcoin block, which is about 10 minutes. With this, it's going to reduce the times to make a block on Stacks down to 5 seconds. So 10 minutes to 5 seconds is going to be, many orders of magnitude faster. And this is going to allow Bitcoin DeFi and Stacks DeFi to be just much more usable, since you'll be able to make transactions much more quickly. Additionally, it'll have 100% Bitcoin finality. So that increases security because transactions on Stacks will now be irreversible on Bitcoin. It's going to enable a new era of Bitcoin use cases. So now you'll be able to build freely without compromising Bitcoin's integrity because you are building on this Stacks layer 2. And ultimately the goal is that this is going to unlock the Bitcoin economy, right? That gets back to that whole thing that we talked about before. Bitcoin has over $1 trillion in market cap. This enables people to use it to earn yield, to use it as collateral for loans, to do all those other things that you would normally be able to do with a financial asset, but which isn't as easy to do with Bitcoin right now. And if all of this sounds interesting to you, you may want to check out the Stacks ecosystem. Here's how you can get started. First thing you'll need is a wallet that's compatible with Stacks. If you've been using MetaMask on Ethereum, if you've been using Phantom on Solana, those wallets are not going to work. So two that you can use are Xverse and Leather. Both great options. Personally, I went with Xverse. Second thing you'll need to do is you'll need to bridge some funds over to Stacks. And the bridge that I've been using is Xlink. They brand themselves as the Bitcoin Bridge. And you can see here, when you go to the page, first thing you can do is you can actually bridge your BTC over to Stacks chain. And you can choose the token that you receive it in. However, note that in order to pay for transaction fees on Stacks, you will need to bridge at least some into the STX token, because on Stacks, transaction fees are paid using the Stacks token. Also note that many exchanges have Stacks because it's a major token at this point. And so if you're using an exchange that offers Stacks and enables withdrawals, then you may be able to just buy it directly on there and withdraw it to your wallet. Coinbase, I know, for example, allows you to buy Stacks. Once you're on Stacks, then there's a lot of cool DeFi applications you can check out. I'm going to highlight a few today. First is Stacking DAO. Stacking DAO allows you to easily stack your stacks, or rather stake your stacks, depending on the lingo you want to use. And so what you're doing here is you are contributing your stacks towards securing the Stacks chain. And in return, you are receiving yield. And remember, the yield on Stacks comes in the form of BTC. And then even better, Stacking DAO doesn't have a token yet. So if you stack on Stacking DAO, you receive points, and there's 31,000 people using this right now, which honestly I think is not that many. But that's a good thing, right? That's a good thing if you're farming an airdrop because you want to be early. But you receive these points, and then eventually, probably if and when Stacking DAO releases some sort of token, good chance that you are eligible for it if you accumulate some of these points. Another interesting protocol on Stacks is Arcadico. And this is starting to get into what I was talking about before as unlocking BTC liquidity. Because what Arcadico lets you do is you can provide collateral in the form of stacks, ST stacks, so staked stacks, or XBTC. So that's a version of bridged BTC to stacks. And then you can use these to borrow the USDA stablecoin. Note that the last Oracle price of this is about 95 cents. So it's not exactly equal to $1 at the moment. But the potential of this is huge, because what this enables you to do basically is use your BTC as collateral to borrow a stablecoin. And like I mentioned before, that is, I think, one of the killer uses of Bitcoin DeFi is going to be unlocking all of that $1 trillion of currently unused assets and enabling it to be used both as collateral and to earn yield. And then the final application on Stacks that I want to highlight today is known as Alex. Alex is the leading decentralized exchange on Stacks. And what that lets you do is basically swap between different tokens on Stacks. So if you want to convert your STX to ABTC or XBTC or a stablecoin like SUSDT, then you can do that on here. That could be pretty useful if you are moving tokens around. Additionally, you can provide liquidity. So if you've never used a decentralized exchange before, these are possible because all of the liquidity for people to swap is provided by users. And you can see here, for example, you can provide liquidity on stacks in the own Alex token or on stacks and ABTC. And some of these yields are actually pretty decent. You know, for example, you can pair up stacks and ABTC in a 50-50 ratio, and you are earning about 29% right now, which honestly isn't too bad. And the reason that's so high is because they have incentivized rewards using their Alex token. Once again, if you want to learn more about stacks, be sure to check out the free deep dive that I published on my Substack. And if you want more deep dives and crypto news and updates like this, then be sure to subscribe to the Substack at dynamodefi.substack.com, where I publish the latest on-chain analysis, trends, and more every single week. And for more videos like this one, be sure to like and subscribe. Until next time, this is Dynamo DeFi.